Welcome to Torah Smash, the podcast for nerdy Jews, where our lives of Jewish learning collide with our love of nerd culture. I am Barak Malkin, and joining me today are
Ethan Lane Miller,
RDY,
Micah Hart.
In each episode, we discuss what we lovingly call a Torah Smash, which we have defined as a beautiful collision of one thing from the world of Judaism with another from nerd culture. Our guest for today's episode is Micah Hart. Micah was hugely involved in Nifty growing up and was president of the Southern region his senior year of high school, then pretty much ran away from the Jewish world after watching his dad deal with it for 30 years at Jacob's Camp and the Institute of Southern Jewish Life. So it was quite a 180 for him when he started hosting Who Knows One early in the pandemic, and now he finds himself working constantly with Jewish organizations doing shows and workshops to help build community. He is a huge sports and trivia nerd and has been on 2 different sports game shows and participated in quiz bowls of various kinds throughout his life. He is also a big comedy nerd and is fascinated by futurism. Welcome, Micah.
Thank you for having me, guys.
Very excited.
Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks really for joining us.
I feel like we should give you some random Jewish person in nerd culture to find, and then you have to...
Well, what's funny is Barak and I had a conversation not an hour ago where Barak mentioned he's going to be close to where I live. And, you know, how close is Dana Point to where you live?
I'm going to a wedding.
I told him... And so I'm looking at my calendar, like, I hope it's not this weekend because I have something else. And then on this weekend, I have a wedding. And wait, this wedding is in Dana Point. Is it this couple? And it was.
I love it. That stuff happens all the time. It's so fun.
It was the best. I was like, I'm so sad that didn't happen while Micah was here.
I will tell you, as the outsider watching the conversation, it was delightful. It was very funny.
So I'm excited that you're here and that you had expressed to us that you had like this fascination with futurism. And I think that leads nicely into this. So we record our listeners. Some of you know this. We record our episodes a little bit early, but the day that this episode is scheduled to release is October 26th. And for those that don't know, that is the date that Marty McFly was sent back from the future. So that's where we're going to start. So we're going to look at this trilogy as a whole, not just the first one, and a number of different aspects from characters to plot. And we know that the majority of this centers around the subject of time, but I also plan to explore the subject of who a person is. So what do you all think the Jewish connection is that I'm connecting to this incredible timeless trilogy? And I'll give a hint that
the Jewish connection between between futurism, Back to the Future,
between the Back to the Future trilogy, dealing with time and who a person is, and it's a Jewish content. I'll give a hint that it is
how many characters?
It's a popular quote, right?
Is it "Don't Waste a Minute" by Macy Hart? Is that that we're looking for?
It is not. It is not.
Okay.
I consider it to be a famous quote. And there was a song. I don't know how popular the song was, but I know it a lot from a song, a Jewish song. It uses the Hebrew
like
language.
mitzvah gerer mitzvah.
No, good guess. Not that one.
But I've sung it at summer camp. All my life's a circle.
No, this song was written, I want to say in like 2004.
So not
2003, maybe.
Gesher
I think no, was not that.
Justin Bieber, how old is he?
I'll give another hint. It is a quote by Hillel.
Is it the? Well, okay. So now I'm trying to think of what he said that's related to the future, and all I can think. The first thing I think of with Hillel is "Do not do to others what is hateful to yourself," and the rest is commentary. Now go study.
Yeah, not that one. There's one that ends with some phrase around timing of.
Are you thinking of "It is not up to you to finish the task"?
No. We're getting close.
That's not
that would have been a real good one.
Yeah.
You exhausted my knowledge of Hillel say.
All right, I'm gonna lead us into this. Today we will be exploring the Back to the Future trilogy through the quote from Rabbi Hillel: "If I am not for myself, who will be for me?
Oh, duh.
If I am only for myself, what am I? And if not now, when?"
Can we re-record this part because they're going to take away my rabbi card for not thinking of that?
I don't want to say anything, but yeah.
The song that I was thinking of, it was written by Ross M. Levy while he was at Urban Mitzvah Corps in 2003, and it became popularized, I want to say closer to 06. So it's Im Ein Ani Li Mili. No, nobody knows this one? All right,
I know
cool.
a Beth Schaefer
Yeah,
one.
2000. So
Yeah, no, I figured that's fine. So we're gonna explore this, and I know that Robert Zemeckis isn't Jewish from my search, but Bob Gale is, and I'm not entirely convinced that they didn't base the trilogy off of these spacings. So I have found that this quote works perfectly broken up by movie. So we're gonna explore this by movie. So the first part,
Wow.
if I am not for myself, who is? It's all about self-care, right? So in this first one, it is fixing the timeline so that he does not disappear, right? And even
Sorry, I have a
go
question.
ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
What happens to our discussion when we now understand that that's not how the timeline works because of Avengers Endgame?
I think that we could probably unwrite that timeline by saying they
this is the timeline where we don't know that.
Right, exactly.
Okay, I can handle that.
We're going off of Back to the Future rules. We're not going off of Bill and Ted rules. We're not going off of Avengers rules. This is Back to the Future rules.
I will say Star Trek handled this in the latest season of Picard, where they had to explicitly say, no, this isn't a parallel universe. This is our universe where someone went back in time and changed something. So the Avengers multiverse is bleeding into other areas now where we have to actually address it to the audience before they go, wait a second, can't we do this?
I love that.
Yeah. So I want to start us there. So topics of, I don't know, most recent time you guys have seen the Back to the Future trilogy. I rewatched them this past couple of weeks. The first one I got to watch with my older son. I don't think he grasped it at 4 years old, but he had a good time. Yeah. Any initial thoughts on this?
We watched the entire trilogy with our kids during the pandemic.
Oh, great. So you're pretty fresh on it.
Well, but now what is time? Which is a great concept of what we're talking about. I can't remember. It could have been last week. It could have been 2.5 years ago when we watched it. I did look to see if it was on any of the streaming services right now, and I don't think it is.
No.
And I never understand that.
Yeah.
How does something as iconic as Back to the Future, with all of the resources we have in the world right now, talk about parallel universes? I want to live in the parallel universe where there is always access to movies like Back to the Future with 17,000 different streaming services. So I could not go back and watch it again, but it's been relatively recent that I saw all three of them.
Yeah. I rented it through the local library. That was a good move. It was good.
I don't have anything to play a DVD on.
Oh, well, there's your problem.
So I have to go digital. Yeah.
See if they have the VHS.
I also don't have a Betamax. The movie itself about fixing the timeline, it's such an interesting, like my smash to that would be like, it's nothing like Judaism, because a lot of, especially like rabbinic Judaism, they care nothing about history. They don't care about what happened in the past. They care about what the Torah says, and that's it.
Huh? You mean just in studying the Torah?
In like rabbinic Judaism. And when I say rabbinic Judaism, I mean like as the Judaism that we know today was being developed. You know, when people are making the rules for stuff we have to do, like kashrut or how to dress or whatever, they didn't care about the development of history and the events that happened that did things, except for certain events. So like destruction of the temple, that's a big deal. But how people's behavior dictated the culture, they didn't care about that. They just wanted to know what to do.
Oh, the fixed points in time.
Fixed points in time.
Yeah. All right. Well,
would they go back and prevent the destruction of the temple?
Well, I guess if somebody went back and caused it to not be destroyed, would they go, we have to destroy the temple now? Right. He went back and ended up making himself disappear because he got hit by the car instead of his dad. And that's what caused this whole thing to happen, was that he interfered with it. He could have just not, if he found Doc Brown first, movie wouldn't have happened. He would have stayed in there for the week and they would have gotten them back. But because he interfered, that's why he had to do this. So maybe they would have said, if they went back and caused the temple not to be destroyed, that'd be an interesting situation to be in, like that you have to be the one to then destroy the temple, knowing that it has to be destroyed in order for Judaism to continue the way it's going to.
Oh, I mean, that's straight from a Star Trek episode.
Is it?
I mean, not literally that, but like, I have to do this thing to cause this accident to happen to keep the timeline going the way it did. There was a great 2-parter in Deep Space Nine, but we'll talk about that later.
There was a good quantum leap about that too, about the JFK assassination.
I remember that.
Oh yeah,
That was like one of the last episodes, I think. And the whole thing was like, but like their twist on it was that Jackie was assassinated in the
right.
By the way, spoiler alert for anyone that's watching. Quantum Leap.
RDY believes that if it's over 2 years old, you have no excuses.
2 months.
Oh, you have 2 months? That is a short turnaround.
2 months.
You have no
because
forgiveness.
by the time something has happened 2 months ago, you have to have avoided the internet so religiously that you're not going to hear me spoil it anyway.
Here's a nerd question.
Yeah.
Are the rules different for nerds for spoilers than for like other cultures? Because I feel like nerd culture, I apologize if I'm stereotyping, poorly or just
give it to us.
In general. Nerd culture is fairly online, I feel like, and therefore more likely to come across things that would be discussions that would have spoilers. So are the rules different for what the signposts are for when you can talk about
such a good question?
Okay, I have a knee-jerk reaction to this. Okay. My knee-jerk reaction is yes. Something that I've noticed that Star Wars has done really well with their latest series is they will put out spoilers, but if their series release on like Thursday night, they'll do it on like Monday or Tuesday. So they'll put out like the character posters of the characters that appear. So in the Book of Boba Fett, spoilers for the first season, but it's way more than 2 months. So we're past the RDY limit. When the Mandalorian comes into the series, they didn't release character posters of him until many days afterwards. So that, in Disney's eyes, they gave people like through the weekend to be able to catch the episode before they put official spoilers out there. And going to my other favorite franchise with Star Trek, I got annoyed at Will Wheaton when he spoiled something major from season 2, the finale of Picard, on Friday afternoon. And the episode came out like Thursday night at like midnight. So most people didn't even have an opportunity to see it yet. And I understood his perspective. He was like, I was so excited to share this. And I get it. Like, he has the right to share things he's excited about. But I felt like a lot of other people who were commenting were like, Will, I love you, man. But like, I haven't had the chance to watch this yet. Like, at least give us like 24 hours, man.
I don't know if there's
I read that post.
Oh.
I didn't watch Picard, but I read that post. And I do remember him saying, major spoilers beware at the beginning of the post. Which is...
Maybe he added that back afterwards. I just remember I was scrolling and I was like, oh, come on, man.
So Micah, go ahead.
That part of nerd culture is a bit of competitiveness, because something about being a nerd means you never won anything as a kid. But now that we are able to rely on our brains more than our bodies, we have a chance to win stuff. And part of winning is just kind of that, like, I learned this before anyone else did kind of aspect.
It's a great nerd voice, I'd like to say.
Yeah, Thurston Howell, the nerd. So the idea of Monday for Disney, I think, is really just brilliant marketing and timing for nerds, because those of us who are nerdy enough to watch Book of Boba Fett, we're going to watch it that first weekend. So by Monday, it's okay. And for everybody who's not quite as nerdy, it's a teaser and gets them interested in the show. So it's brilliant on Disney's part. And I think there is kind of a kindness of, capital letters, spoiler alert, and you don't read it if you don't want to read it. But there's also an air of, look how cool I am. I was the first one to see it on midnight on a Thursday. And here's my take on all these things on this particular movie, show, whatever. And look how much I found in it before any of you even saw it. Ha ha.
I'm going to sort of tie this into the self-care thing, is with the spoiler issue. I actually started reading more comics again, just because when new big movies came out, if you didn't see it the first night or two, even the first night, that by that night or the next morning, the social media is just flooded with images or spoilers that I don't want to see and ruin the whole plot. So I started taking care and making sure that I wasn't gonna catch them, and I started reading more comics instead of going on social media.
I also have that same issue, and I have the bonus of, partly profession and partly things that led me into that profession, is that I tend to stay off of social media on Shabbat, and we tend to go to see movies on Saturday afternoon. So,
you talk about self-care as it relates to this, and I'm a self-professed sports nerd, and there really is so much self-care that goes into anytime you can't take in something that you want to take in at the time that it is happening. So if I, for whatever reason, there's a game I want to watch and I can't be there to watch it, and technology is amazing, you can tape everything, but I have to tell everybody I know I am not watching the game. So don't text me, don't tell me anything. The Saints were I'm a huge New Orleans Saints fan, and the Saints were in the playoffs playing the Bucks a couple years ago, and I had a show at the time.
Can I just say for our average listener, now this isn't even for Susan. These are football teams.
That's that. Thank you for that. Yes. Football, it's like an oblong shaped pigskin. And I had this whole conversation with my kids, listen, I'm going to watch the game after the show. Don't tell me what happens. And it's like you said, they're like little Will Wheatons running around. They just can't help themselves.
No, that's so funny.
There's an episode of Scrubs with that exact scenario where Dr. Cox has a night shift, and the janitor finds out that he's telling everybody, I have recorded this game. Don't you dare tell me anything about it. And naturally the janitor at the end spoils it.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's a big thing in The American President too, the movie The American President, where it gets ruined for him. There's a sports ball game that he wants to see that's recorded. and some low-level staffer is like, yeah, go whatever team. And he's like, oh, it was a big moment.
I'm gonna pull us back away from this sports ball conversation. Right. No, you're good. You're good. I'm gonna just prove my thing for one more point, and we'll move on to the second movie. So the other piece of self-care in the movie, there's this constant, right? What if they say I'm no good? What if they don't like me? I just don't think I could take that kind of rejection, right? Both Marty and his dad have very similar concerns about that, and they need that push from, Marty needs it from Doc, and George McFly needs it from Marty in order to, care for himself and do what he has to do, right? Overcome Biff in the parking lot, whatever it is. He needs that self-confidence in order to do that. All right, we're going to move on to the second one. I'm keeping an eye on the time for us to keep moving. So the second,
I think I know the second part.
Do you want to guess it?
Yeah. Because if I'm only for myself, what am I?
Yeah.
And it's Marty's obsession with being called chicken, and not his obsession with, I have to do this.
Yeah. I found two things in this one. So one is the chicken, when it expands, and we'll get maybe in a little bit. I really think this is two movies, this trilogy. I think the first one is one movie, and 2 and 3 are a split, very long movie, because the nothing's fully resolved in the midway between them, and all of these things continue. So we can talk about it again. But I think one is the Marty being called chicken, or if he's not for himself, who am I? He's got to stand up. I also interpreted a little also as community, right? If I'm not for myself, then what am I?
If I'm only for myself, what am I?
Right. If only for myself, what am I? So thank you for that correction. The community sense, right? In the second movie, it's no longer about him disappearing. It's about his mom being married to Biff, his brother becoming an alcoholic. It's about Doc being committed. It's about the world being destroyed by Biff's gambling addiction. It's not about him in this one. It's about the entire rest of the community and world, in a sense. And so that's where the second one comes in.
Well, I would say specifically Biff, because his selfishness causes the entire conundrum. So it's right, like he's only thinking about himself and how he can profit on it, and look at all the repercussions that come from that. And look, he might think he's happy, but he's not happy.
Yeah. I think each of the movies does a really nice job of setting up this Hillel quote in the first part, of setting up what the issue is, right? So in the second one, it is the senior Biff finding out about the almanac, and then taking it back to his younger self. Like, he's creating that as this selfish person. If I'm not for myself, then what am I? If I'm only for myself, he is only for himself, and that's what causes this issue. And we have to be able to get towards the end where we have to forego certain things and care more about the people around us and less about us, our own. And
I think we also watched Back to the Future as a family most recently during the pandemic or soon before it. And Dystopian Biff reminded us so much of a particular person that it was really, really hard to watch some of those scenes. And I think that's also an if I am only for myself, what am I kind of person.
Yeah. I actually am pretty sure that was partially based on He Who Shall Not Be Named. I don't know why we're doing this.
Fear of a name increases fear of the thing itself.
Right. I'm pretty sure that was part of the caricature of him, a millionaire with a giant building, name crossed the top, even his comb over situation at that time. I'm pretty sure I saw somewhere that there, in that time frame, that was a very popular person. And so that was the representative. Yeah.
Can I just very quickly rewind to the first movie about his journey to not
you want to travel in time?
Artie, I know I was gonna say that.
But I think it's interesting that we're talking about, the challenges of being erased and whatnot, because the movie literally features someone being erased, because it was originally Eric Stoltz playing the part of Marty McFly.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh,
and
what a
this,
great
I did a little bit of research today, and I learned this today, which blew my mind. Do you know who was originally cast to play Jennifer?
No, I don't know this.
No.
Melora Hardin, aka Jan from The Office, was
really?
Was originally, in the movie, she was in it. And then when they recast Eric Stoltz, they recast her because she was too tall for
Michael J. Fox.
When my first kid was really young, there was this there's a Netflix series, The Movies That Made Us, and I forgot that was in there. Yeah.
I need to wipe. Excuse my hand on the camera. I'm wiping my brain off of the screen because my mind was just blown.
Yeah, that's very funny. I had no idea. That's great. Yeah.
Talk about unintended consequences of time travel there.
Yeah.
No kidding.
Whoa! Way to go, Ethan.
Yeah, I think you were right, Micah, that Biff in each iteration of himself is this if I'm only for myself kind of villain character.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, I'm going to move us to the third one, and then we can sort of have some sort of encompassing conversations. So the last part of the quote, if not now, when? And so I've translated that sort of as needing to take action, right? The first one was self-care. The second one is caring for others or community. I think if not now, when means that we have to take action. And I think the third movie, they're not worried about fixing the timeline at all in this one, right? There's no rush for anything except for the possibility of Doc getting shot in the back over a matter of $80. But they have an entire week, and the entire time that they're there, there's less concern about that than there is about a lot of other stuff going on in the town. Right. At the beginning, when Seamus takes him in at the McFly farm, Maggie, his wife, says something I don't know if he's so weird. And Seamus says, taking him in is the right thing to do. Right. Talking about that this is what he has to do. And in this moment, taking him in is what's right. It doesn't matter what he looks like, what their feelings are about him. This is the action that has to happen. And so that was at the beginning, I kept catching these moments throughout when Clara, Clay, and the teacher is running off with the horse carriage is running off. They take action in that moment and save her from falling into the ravine. There's a lot of pieces throughout this where there's just somebody stepping up in the moment. It's far less about time travel and much more about needing to be the person that does the right thing throughout the entire third movie. Thoughts?
Yeah, thanks. Good night.
That was great.
Yeah,
No.
totally.
No notes.
No notes. I'll give you more. I had some other things here. There's a great quote that Doc says, anyone can make the future whatever they want it to be, right? Your future is whatever you make it, so make it a good one. Like, it's all about making the right choices and taking the right actions. I think that this movie is framed in this Hillel quote really perfectly, this whole trilogy.
I buy it.
I mean, I wonder if Rabbi Hillel thought in the future this is going to be used to talk about time travel.
I don't know. He ended with, if not now, when. Maybe he came back from the future and then he wrote the quote.
Oh.
Maybe he saw the third movie and appreciated what Doc Brown said and was like, I need to incorporate that some into my own teachings.
I think so.
Yeah. Everybody's just so agreeable in this one. No. What any other things come? How about as a whole? We've now discussed each episode individually, and we have the quote as a whole. Any other things come into mind in regards to this Hillel quote?
I mean, I guess I would say, it ends on if not now, when. And I feel like, to me, that's all about the past is the past. And it's more important to focus on whatever it is that you want. Now's the time to start doing it. And you can't change what's happened in the past. Obviously, in the movie, they do change, although they end up trying to change it back to the way it was. But
Right.
Either way, I think the important lesson is you need to live in the present because you can't change the past and the future is not guaranteed.
Right. Yeah. I like that. That's a nice interpretation.
Absolutely. There's also a pretty common phrase from the Talmud that there's no early and late in the Torah, because they love to play around with the timeline. They love to have, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob studying Torah. They love to have, Moses go, oh, there is a time travel story in the Talmud where Moses is kind of despairing about himself and his situation. And he says to God, like, what am I doing all of this for? Like, why am I writing all this stuff down? What's the use? And God goes, oh, well, there's going to be a rabbi named Hillel in the future. And you know what? Let me show you. And poof, Moses is in the back of Hillel's classroom. And Hillel is teaching about Moses and referring to him as Moshe Rabbeinu, which is both a way to honor Moses by making him a rabbi and a way to honor themselves by calling him what they call themselves. And it makes Moses feel good that Hillel is teaching about him. And then he goes poof back and he goes, yes, I will write this Torah for the people. Yeah. So it's a great, that just popped into my head. Time travel story in the Talmud.
I can think of two.
So there's no early and late.
I can think of two time-based things in the Torah. I think. I think the Torah starts, and the first thing that's defined as time is day and night. The first thing that we get is the definition of time, and now that we know it, we can fiddle what we want with it. Go ahead.
However.
Yeah,
I agree with
actually,
you, and it's not quite actually. There is this notion of the word day, yom, in Hebrew. What is a day to us now is 24 hours, but what was a day to God? And when God creates light and dark and calls them night and day, we don't know how long that first night and day were. We don't have a way to measure time until day 4, when the planetary bodies are created.
Oh, interesting.
Time is still a factor because the word day is in play. And the word Bereshit, which is the first word of the Torah, means we translate it most often as in the beginning, but it literally translates to in a beginning. So yes, time is a factor in the very beginning of Torah, but it's also played with in the very beginning.
All right. I've got another one you can correct me on.
Sorry.
I think, I don't know if this counts as time travel or as reincarnation, but we are all here right now. We're all also apparently at the base of Mount Sinai, ready to receive the commandments, right? Aren't we all there as well? Do you think we've time traveled from that? Or is that some reincarnation thing? That's not what we're talking about, but maybe it's a time travel. I don't know. I don't think that's
is it time travel? Case. Well, we're also traveling to the future because here we are recording in August, but no one can listen to this until October 26th.
That's true.
That's yeah.
I going back to the Hillel Moses time travel story. I'd never heard that one before. That's so fascinating. Is that a predestination paradox?
Can you tell me what those words mean together?
Sure.
Yeah, for
So,
Susan. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. So essentially,
Oh
what
yeah,
it
for her,
means
not for
is
me.
if Moses was having doubts and saying, "I'm not going to write this," the future where Moses does it. Essentially, it's saying if Moses hadn't written it, how could God have taken him into the future where Hillel was teaching about Moses if he hadn't already then gone and done it?
Oh.
Yeah. Is it a
Yeah.
predestination paradox?
So I think the idea that there's no early and late and means that they don't need to worry about that.
Oh, good save, Rabbi.
I was gonna say I recently watched an episode of what I consider to be one of the best Star Trek shows out there, Orville, and they and in an episode they deal with time travel, and he said in 10 seconds from now we're gonna send this sandwich back to now, and then the sandwich shows up and they're like, oh, we've got 2 sandwiches, and he's like, oh no, we've got to send this one back to the past now. And so they covered that, like, well, if it stayed, there'd be a whole paradox situation. But it's what you're talking about, this predestination paradox of like they haven't done it yet, and yet it's here because they plan to do it. Yeah, I don't know what.
It's also in Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure. Remember
The
a
keys.
trash can.
Trash can.
Yeah, the trash can. We're gonna steal let's make a recording for us to distract the dad, so we'll put the keys here, and yeah.
This
Well,
is Deputy Van Halen.
I'm going to choose to quote Captain Catherine Janeway: "The future is the past is the future. It all gives me a headache."
Well, that's fun. So I don't know if we don't have any other like of Back to the Future things people want to chat about. And I'm happy to ask, like, I have 2 fun just movie questions. One, favorite time travel movie? Anybody have a favorite time travel movie?
Oh, you should be able to guess Ethan's answer.
Star Trek 4?
The whales.
Yeah, is it really?
Yeah.
You're gonna have to explain to me someday why that movie is good.
Does Groundhog's Day count as a
Yeah.
time travel?
Yeah.
I would count that. He's able to predict what's going to happen because he's been there before. Yeah, absolutely.
Actually,
That's a great answer.
I might say Groundhog Day, but I might actually say, I don't know if anyone has seen in similar context, if anyone has seen Palm Springs.
Yeah.
Yes.
They did a nice job with that.
That
was
is
funny.
a good movie.
Wow, so many. I mean, I feel like if I didn't say Endgame, I would be disappointing people.
Would you consider that to be like one of the most? So let me preface this. Given the popularity of Marvel and superhero movies, is it possible that is one of the most mainstream time travel movies? I mean, obviously, we're talking about Back to the Future, which I think is also a very mainstream time travel movie. But I'm curious just what your reaction would be to that question.
I would say Back to the Future would be like the most iconic mainstream time travel movie. But Endgame is giving it a fighting.
I did enjoy the like first half was like a getting the band back together, and the second half was like time travel heist. I thought I enjoyed it. I think we talked about it. I think I was going to say that my favorite time travel movie was going to be Bill and Ted. That was a lot of fun. They played around with that really wonderfully. Yeah. Not the newest one. That was okay.
A lot of these like newer movies are our own attempts at time travel.
Yeah.
That they're nostalgic and they're fun for the nostalgia, but they're not good.
So let me ask this other question then, just because this came up for myself. I talked about how I think the second and third are technically one movie. We can leave it alone just and ignore it and pretend we're in 87 when the second one came out, 89, I don't remember. I think that Back to the Future 2 is one of those few movies that is equal to or better than the original. I think there's few. I think that Back to the Future 2 can stand up to the original as an equally great movie. And
I'm fascinated by that because I feel like my recollection is that no one liked the second one, that they liked the first,
mine too,
liked the third, and that the second one was just sort of like you had to get through it.
I loved when they were playing with when they jumped back to 1955 and we're in the high school scenario and like going through the town, and they used both shots from the first movie and then created their own side story pieces. And he's going, I really enjoyed them playing with this, like it exists and it's not changing what happened because they're on the backside of it and they're having their own piece, but it's, you know, where you are in the first one. I really enjoyed that playful, like, you know, the end of the dance, he plays the guitar and he's talking to his parents in the stairwell, and Biff's there in the outside talking to the future Marty. And you think he's going to come out and interrupt. And he's like, oh, by the way, and he turns back, if you have a kid, like, and the conversation doesn't end, but you think he's going to interrupt. And then there's this whole back and forth outside of him calling him chicken. And then he comes out and he slams him in the face because of, like, I think there's a lot of playful time-based storytelling that I thought was really enjoyable. Yeah. So the question
I think,
go ahead.
I think Kevin Feige might agree with you, because there were definitely shout outs to that in Endgame.
Oh, like the Hulk coming down the stairs?
I buy that.
Yeah.
Like the Hulk coming down the stairs, like landing in New York right in the middle of the battle.
Right.
And you can see stuff happening in the background. And
Yeah.
I think that was a shout out.
So did you all have, so the question is, what movies do you like, sequels, second movies that you think are equal to or better than the original? Could even be equal to
Godfather.
Godfather 2? Yeah.
So here's a funny one. Because I actually literally just the other day read on Vulture their list of the 102 greatest sequels of all time.
102. Wow.
Yeah, that's a lot.
Why? And one that is not on there that I might be the only person in the world with this opinion, but Young Guns 2 is so much better than Young Guns. It's such a good movie, and it wasn't on there. I couldn't believe it.
I'm sorry, Micah. If you're listening, please make it a list of 103.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
Has anyone seen Young Guns 2 other than me?
Let us know in the comments.
I think
I will. I just Googled that particular article, and the first 3 movies on the list I have not seen, and the third one is The Matrix Reloaded, which I totally disagree with.
Yeah, I disagree with
disagree.
choices, but
Very disagree.
no, The Dark Knight.
it's on that list.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, that's good. I struggle counting stories that were created from existing entities. Like Batman as a thing existed, so his first movie to me doesn't feel like a first thing, because you already know going into it what you're sort of expecting from some sense of it. I'm not saying I don't count your choice either. Are you
referring to the 1967 first movie, or are you referring?
I'm referring to him in the comics.
1989
first created
movie,
from all those first movies were created from an existing character. Like I
will tell you, in my honest opinion, the definitive greatest sequel of all time, hands down, is Paddington 2. I'm not kidding in the slightest.
You're not the first person I've heard say that. That was in a movie.
A phenomenal movie. I haven't even seen the first one. I don't even know how I
you
ended
don't
up
even
seeing
know
the
the first one ranks, so it has to rank better than the first.
I'm gonna have to watch.
It's like a flawless movie. So
that's really interesting. All right, Paddington and Paddington 2.
This came up very recently. Very recently in pop culture, there was a movie or TV show where one of the main what am I thinking
Nick
of?
Cage movie that just came out of the unbearable
the unbearable weight of
massive talent.
Yeah.
There's a whole scene about it. I was like, all right, I'm gonna like this movie because I agree with that wholeheartedly.
All right. So now you're telling me I have to watch Paddington and Paddington 2 before I watch its trilogy, The Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent.
I mean, maybe watch Paddington. I can't vouch for that. I couldn't believe. I have sort of a general. I'm borrowing this from someone else. It's not my original, but movies are basically all based on expectation. If your expectation for a movie is 1 and it's a 3, then that movie's incredible. But if your expectation for the movie is a 4 and it's a 3, then it's a disappointment. Yeah. My expectation for Paddington 2, which I took my kids to see, was like a -12.
Right.
Because it's already a sequel and it's a kid's movie. And I couldn't believe how good it was. I was like, absolutely, my jaw was funny.
All right, I'll have to check these out. I was going to
and I like, even hearing this, I still don't really want to watch it, but I think I have to.
We'll have you back when when we talk about it on Torah Smash.
That's a good idea.
I was gonna say, if I had to pick a favorite sequel, I think I would pick Terminator 2.
Ooh.
When he comes back and
Good
now he's
one.
the hero, that is such a twist. They did a nice job on that.
Yeah. I agree.
Yeah, that is a good one.
Aliens.
Aliens is good.
Also
like it.
good.
Yeah.
Predator.
Predator 2?
Just kidding.
I don't know.
Predator 2 was not good, but everything else after that was good.
I want to make it clear. I'm avoiding saying it because I assume someone else will say it, but I'll just go ahead and say it now. Empire Strikes Back.
Yeah.
Yeah,
we talked about
but
this
not
already.
not when we watched it. Not when it was in the theaters.
Yeah.
Not until we knew the whole trilogy did we like Empire better.
And we might save this conversation for another day. I might argue the same for The Last Jedi, but we'll bookmark that conversation.
Was the Last
We're
Jedi
gonna fight on that
most?
episode.
Was that
Okay.
the final one? Was that the 9th? Was that the last?
No, that
Jedi?
was 8.
Okay. All right.
Oh, so you're saying the sequel of the third part trilogy of
Yeah, basically really
prequel.
complicating what you were pointing out, Barack.
It's okay. Any other things that come to mind in terms of this time travel sequels, Back to the Future, Hillel quote, anything that anybody wants to get out?
Well, like I said, tomorrow.
Yes.
I got nothing after that.
Nothing.
I just, as a kid, always, anytime I saw it, and I guess as an adult too, but especially as a kid, any kind of time travel movie, it just made me think, like, what would I go back? If I could go back, like, what would I do differently or what would I change?
Yeah.
I just remember thinking about that often.
an
Groundhog
answer?
Day in particular.
Do you have an
Groundhog
answer?
Day, actually, on my Campfires and Color Wars podcast, we have like a questionnaire segment at the end, and one of the questions that I've asked a few times is like, if you could Groundhog Day a summer at camp, what summer would it be, and like what would you do differently?
An entire summer they get to redo?
Yeah, but I mean, you could narrow it to a day, I suppose.
Wow. Either way.
I have a summer like that for
Oh,
sure. Yeah. I have a summer where I was a total d-hole, and I was just
Donut hole?
obnoxious that whole
Yeah.
summer. I was a total donut hole. I was quoting Rocket. I was not nice. I was not a good person. I would love to go back and redo that summer.
See, I had a very different reaction. My reaction was like, I thought of 2 favorite summers, and I was like, man, to relive that again, make some different choices.
Oh yeah.
Exactly where I went. I never thought about a summer that I did something wrong. It was just like, what was the best summer, and how could I make it even?
Oh, that's so interesting.
Oh man.
And I went to Chuva. It must be a career choice thing.
Yeah, I don't think I thought of like reliving a great time because it was so good. I'd want to like fix something. But then the other part of me is like, but that's how you became who you are, is all those things. So like part of me is like, meh, it's what.
Is it a cop out to say there's a particular period of my life I would want to relive and I wouldn't want to change a thing about it?
No, that's
Ooh,
nice.
That's fun.
That's a nice thought though.
Yeah.
Micah, before we wrap up, you mentioned your Campfire and Color War podcast. Anything else you want to shout out in perpetuity for the future listeners?
Sure. Campfires and Color Wars is a summer camp podcast. So check that out. I also just finished season 1 of a podcast that I did with a friend of mine called the Cocoon Podcast. And it's all about being in the middle of big changes in your life and what it feels like to be going through it, as opposed to a lot of things out there that are looking back with the benefit of hindsight and talking about all the things they did correctly. This is more just about what it feels like to be in the midst of it. So we just finished season 1. You can catch that on all the podcast platforms as well. And
Sounds
you can
great.
catch one, most Wednesday nights, although we're moving to Spain. So just still trying to figure out how exactly that's going to work, but that we'll still be
Thursday
there.
mornings.
That's right. Thursday morning. I'm gonna need to time travel nine hours ahead so that I can do it not in the middle of the night.
You can expand your audience and start having them find international phone numbers.
Well, actually, we are going to do that.
Oh, that's fun.
Trying to figure out how
Which
that
time
works,
zone lines up?
for the North American audience. We don't. It's a whole separate episode of me trying to figure this out.
Yeah.
If I could have a Groundhog Day, it's me figuring it out instead of spending as many hours as I've done.
That's very funny.
You know,
awesome.
if you ever feel the need for contestants, I am sure the hosts of Torah Smash would be happy to fight each other to the death on Who Knows One.
Absolutely.
Okay, I like it.
Yeah.
Barak,
Except I'm a little bit afraid that Barak is a super connector.
I say, Barak, you were a contestant on in Elijah's Cup, right?
I was, yeah. In your first Elijah's Cup, me and my twin sister Shifra competed. We won our first round, and then we did not make it past that. But it was a lot of fun. It was good.
Well, thank you for doing that.
Yeah.
I had a good time.
Yeah, excellent.
And I've been texted a few times, but that's about it.
It's fun. I've been in the waiting room quite a bit. It's a nice space. I like what you've done with the place. All right, so before we make like a tree and get out of here, we need to make sure that we remember we need to make sure that we remember the teachings of Rabbi Hillel and Marty McFly, that it's important to take care of ourselves and each other, and it shouldn't matter if people think what you're doing is no good. You can't worry about that kind of rejection. We need to step up and take action, because if you put your mind to it, you can accomplish anything. And it could be hard to do all that. I get it. And some of you all won't be ready for it yet, but your kids are going to love it.
That was awesome.
Yeah. Cool. Great. Well, Micah, it has been wonderful having you on here. Really appreciate it. Yeah, this has been a great episode.
Thank you so much. This is great.
Thank you for joining us.
Yeah. So that'll do it for this episode of Torah Smash. Our fiscal sponsor is Jewish Creativity International. Our theme music was created by Sean Fogel. You can check out Sean's bands and studio work at www.thesleepywest.com. This episode is supported in part by Magnetic Shul. Magnetic Shul is a tech-free, self-contained toy perfect for prepared parents, Jewish educators, and youth professionals. The colorful sets invite children to play and create their own stories. Each comes with a synagogue background and over 50 magnets of the people and props we encounter while at Shul. Through Magnetic Shul, children are encouraged to play, developing familiarity with the sacred space. Ultimately, Magnetic Shul is where kids play to pray. To learn more about Magnetic Shul, visit www.magneticshul.com or contact its creator directly at justin@magneticshul.com. We want to hear from you and continue today's nerdy discussion. Go to torahsmash.com to find where to connect with us online, email us directly, support us with a donation, find previous episodes, and more. And wait a minute, Doc. Are you telling me you built a podcast out of a Torah?
My favorite piece of Back to the Future esoterica, if you've never seen it, the guy who plays Biff, Tom Wilson, have you ever seen his song? What's up with all the questions?